everyone, welcome to another episode of Know Your Faith series. I'm Collins, and as you can see, I'm smiling because today's topic is something that I think is very funny because I don't know when you think about it really. On today's episode, we'll be talking about the depiction of Jesus. Is Jesus black? You know, some people say I'm praying to black Jesus. And can we depict Jesus in different ethnicities through art? Now, most of us have watched movies like The Passion of Christ and a couple of others where we see Jesus depicted as a white man. And I've also had conversations with people about these movies. Some of them ask questions like, if Jesus is really a white man, as we see in the movies, then how am I as a black person supposed to expect that my prayers will be answered? I mean, he has long hair and I have afro. There's literally nothing we have in common. So how am I sure that he's like me and that he really understands what I am going through? So on today's episode, we'll be really talking about this. The first thing that we really have to understand is that despite the fact that this is what we see, the depiction of Jesus being, a white man through movies and all that, there are certain differences or things that we really need to understand as to why this is so. The first is that art is an expression of freedom. In the early years of our history, the Catholic Church struggled with the question, should Jesus Christ be depicted through art? So this led to what is now known as the iconoclastic controversy of the 8th century. The fear was that depicting his humanity in art would diminish his divinity, and capturing his divinity would leave out the fact that he became flesh and blood like us. The Second Council of Nicene affirmed the legitimacy of images, paving the way for artists to depict Jesus Christ in art. Art is an expression of freedom, and Christian art shows us what theologians and Christian thinkers struggle to explain with words. Another point is that Jesus is first true God and true man. A fundamental teaching of the church is that Jesus Christ is the Word of God made flesh. The focus is always to show that God became a man in Jesus Christ. Portrayals of Jesus in paintings have tended to follow the artistic conventions of the time or the reflection of contemporary theological developments. Now, this is not bad in itself. Popular portrayals of Jesus are often about his birth, his death, his ministry, and his mother. In our appreciation of work of art, our attention and devotion must first be turned towards Christ, who became human for our salvation. Worthy of note is also that Jesus came to identify with every race and nationality. The 4th century bishop, Gregory of Nyssa, wrote regarding the image of God that it dwells within every one of us, ignored and forgotten. We can imagine Gregory of Nyssa having something quite profound to say on the way in which the image of God is both ignored and forgotten by those who suffer persecution for reasons of faith and color, and those who are killed because they oppose oppressive leadership. Those who perpetrate such evil either do not have a concept of God, or they have conception of him as something different from the humanity and attributes of those they oppress. Art has the responsibility of drawing attention to the fact that Jesus was born. He lived, he died and rose again to show us that we too, in our different ethnicities, possess the same dignity and power through him, through our baptism in him. Another thing to note is that it is offensive and even sinful to use one ethnicity's depiction to subjugate others. Now, some people falsely believe that Jesus Christ is white. They arrived at the conclusion from view of work of art that portray Jesus as white. This is historically correct. Some go far to say that since Jesus is white, he does not identify with other people of other ethnicities. So such views create tension and can lead to the denial of the dignity of anyone who does not look white. Some have blamed racial profiling and attacks on this way of thinking, and there is some truth to it. Some others have called for cancellation of portrayals of Jesus as white as a result. The problem is not the image as much as the tendency in us to promote a single narrative to the exclusion of others. We should promote images of Jesus as enculturated into the cultures in which he now lives. Jesus is alive in every person, and we ought to see and serve him in one another. We need to see him especially in the poor, the sick, and the marginalized. Finally, Jesus is for everyone. When Jesus took our humanity, he chose to be born in Israel. Jesus is not black. It helps to know what people from the area look like today and also what they looked like probably, in the first century. But images of Jesus need to be inculturated into every culture because God came not simply as a Galilean, but he took on our humanity so that everyone can identify with him as he wishes to save us all. So when someone asks the question, how can I relate with a white Jesus when I am black? I simply ask, how do you describe Jesus to a blind man, to a person who cannot see color? Would you be more concerned about how long his hair is or how white his face is? Will those be the first features you use to describe him? With all you know as a Christian, that should lead us to a better appreciation of what God in Jesus Christ has come to do for us in choosing to save us from sin and death. A depiction of Jesus as a black man should only serve to help you know that Jesus sees you and he loves you just as you are. So the next time you're wondering whether you can pray to white Jesus or black Jesus, you need to understand that these are not things that you should really be concerned about, but you should know that he loves you just the way you are. So that's it for today's episode. I really hope that you've been able to take one or two things. Share, subscribe to our channel on YouTube at Dominican Media Presents. And until I come your way next time, be bold and be Catholic.